So our next speaker is Janiero Baltrip. He's on the executive board of ILWU Local 10, and he's going to talk a bit about the stadium from a working longshoreman's point of view.
Good afternoon. My name is Janiero Baltrip, and I'm a rank and file member of Local 10, and I'm not for this Howard Terminal and a lot of the things that have been going on since I've been at Local 10. There's been a lot of land grabbing taking places and a lot of warehouses being built like that. But this particular project right here at Howard Terminal is to build housing for people that are in a different class system from the people that even work in that area. This to build houses for billionaires and to have luxury shopping and luxury just stadiums and stuff like that. And this doesn't make much sense, because at the same time we work in that area and we run a 24-hour operation that's banging metal all day long, dropping tons and loads of metal everywhere and goods everywhere and commerce everywhere. And the Howard Terminal is actually an active place. There's like containers stacked up there. There's truckers waiting in line right now to go put a container over into that area. So it's an active bird, as we call it as longshoremen. And like, if I go to the hall right now, I could pick up a job and go to work there. So I know it's an active place. In Howard Terminal, if they come in there and the billionaires get to put in their luxury housing, they're not gonna wanna hear all that noise all day long. There's not enough like soundproof glass in the world to stop them from hearing all that noise, banging and making they're not gonna want the space to be the way it is. It's a domino effect. It's just to take one spot, turn it into luxury, and then take the whole entire area and turn it to something different. Because before, I'm not for it, and I get a little wrapped up because I get heated, and I'm not able to express myself the way some of you people elegantly say things, and I'm just not for that. And it's just like, when I got this job myself as a longshoreman, I turned 25. 25 as a black man, there's some things in my life that was going on in my head thinking, oh, I'm supposed to be dead or in jail and stuff like that. But I get a letter in the mail saying, oh, you could go to work. You got a job. You have an opportunity. You have a chance in this society. And I get this chance in this society, and every time I turn it around, I'm fighting harder for what's going on in the workplace than I thought I would probably be on the street doing whatever. You know, I'm fighting every time I turn around. There's something where we're being attacked by fascists. We're being attacked by all kind of people. And at the same time, it's like, I'm 44 now, so that was like in 2003 when I got the letter saying I could come and get a job. Now I'm a 44-year-old man and still fighting. I don't think the fight is going to end. The struggle shouldn't just disappear like that. But if it's going to end, we should just be able to realize that it's something about us as human beings that this racism and all of these things exist, that we want to come over and take over other people's areas. With this systemic racism and stuff like that, the John Fisher family, I can't just blame it on one family, but they're billionaires shaking hands after billionaires. Because if we're just gonna say Fisher family, we're trying to just focus on them. No, there's other people helping the Fisher family get into their place too. They don't want their names out there, so they're gonna put them on the banner right now. But there's other billionaire families out there doing the same thing. And I just wanna say that I don't think Howard Terminal is the place to build a ballpark. It's not the place because the environment is not ready for that type of structure to be put into place, where there's billionaires and there's housing and luxury housing, and then they're gonna go to the city council and say, well, we don't wanna hear your noise anymore. Can you do something about all the noise and stuff like that? That's the plea that they're gonna be having out there. And if they already pleaded to the city council to take the vote away from the people, that don't make no sense. How can you take the vote? That's like taking my human rights away that we've been struggling to get established here as African Americans, because I come from an African American perspective. And we've been struggling just to get our human rights right. And then you're going to tell us we don't even get to vote on this decision that's going down, where we're going to have to pay billions of dollars to someone to support his project. And he's not even investing in his own project. He's not investing in his own team. It's just a gimmick. It's like, why would we pay to invest in his project that he doesn't even want to put money into it? He gonna front the money, but he wants you to pay it back as tax-paying citizens. If you live in Oakland and you live in Alameda, I live in Oakland. I'm paying taxes right now. I just got a parking ticket, and right after my birthday, I have to go pay that right now before the day is over, or it's gonna increase. And all this money that we're paying for these projects doesn't make any sense. And it's like, wow, we're gonna really sit here and let the city council say, we don't have a right to vote. How do you take people's right to vote? We voted you in office. How can you tell us we can't vote on a decision? It's not right. And what's not right will not be right. And until we get right and do the right thing as a people, we have to stand up as people that's running labor and doing laborers' jobs. You need to stand up, because those people come to you and they depend on you to do all the labor, and they just sit back and reap the benefits of your labor. They're reaping the benefits of our labor. The commerce that we move all day long goes to so many different people's tables. It touches everybody. So if strike, it's not just about just a one-day strike. It got to be something that's going to hit their pockets where it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. It's going to keep hurting. It's going to keep hurting until they realize that they got to do the right thing. And we all should do the right thing. And I stopped trying to shop at the Banana Republics and the Gaps and stuff like that. Because in the Old Navies and all those kind of places, and try to be more conscious of what I'm doing. I'm not just buying this fit because this looks nice on me right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to be more wiser in some of my decisions and some of my choices now, because like, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't always been the most conscious person at some of these things, but I'm becoming more aware of what this situation is. And as I become more aware, I'm knowing that I'm not doing the right thing in some areas. In some areas, we gotta think about it. We have to really truly think, what are we doing? Are we still using our Banana Republic card? Because I have a Banana Republic card. I don't use it. I've never used it, but I got approved for it. And that's helping the Fisher family. We could be sitting up here talking all the crap we want to, and we taking our children down to Old Navy because they got what's affordable right now. We may need to try to find out how to go to Ross or somebody else or something. I don't know, but I'm gonna give my piece, but I'm not for the Howard Terminal because I know that's a domino effect. And I need a place that I've invested my time there, and I've invested years there, and I want to be able to retire and be able to have something to help my family and friends with. I don't want to be just without anything, because I've invested so much of my time. I mean, from 25 to 44, that's almost 20 years. That's almost 20 years I've invested down there. And I'm gonna keep investing my time down there because I've had a decent lifestyle working at the port. I'm not running from the cops. I'm not hiding and ducking and dodging like some people I know because of the choices they had to make in life. Because it's very hard. Not everybody get that letter from the ILWU or PMA, wherever they want to call it, come from. And when you get that letter, you say, hey, I'm gonna answer the call and I'm gonna go and do the right thing. Not everybody get that choice, because a lot of people in the communities I live in, they don't get them letters. We might have all stood in line together and only one of us got the letter out of 10. And I'm the one. And if I got the letter, I'm gonna try to do the right thing. And those brothers and sisters that didn't get the letters, I know they're trying to make it in the world and society too, but we all are trying to make it. So we all need to stand up. Out of that one person that got the letter, the other 9 need to join in too, because they want to be able to accomplish something in the community and make the community strong and have a voice in the vote, because they still voting people. At the same time, they try to take our vote away by putting us in the system. But I could go on for a long time, but Howard Terminal is something I'm truly against as an individual and as a longshoreman. I'm not for that. And I don't believe the vote should be taken away from the people. The people should always have the right to vote. Because we had the right to vote them into office, we should have the right to vote on the decisions on the table.
Yeah, Janiero, thank you very much. But you know, I've worked longshore years past, and I live in Oakland, and I can tell you something. We still, to this day, this sports thing is a real scam. To this day, people in Oakland are paying money to the Raiders behind this misleadership we had years ago. Want you to give money to this. Man, look here. We still paying that bill today. There are 145 stadiums that have been abandoned in the United States. 45 of them have been torn down, but 100 of them are still with us, abandoned stadiums. This is what they're trying to get us. It's really sick. It's sick because now we seeing the politicians is trying to push us to adopt this thing, but in fact, it's a loser, y'all. It really is. There are probably over 100,000 empty condos in the Bay Area at large. Do you believe that? But now they're going to give us some more. And if it fails, who's going to pay the bill? We have to start taking labor action. We already started the 29th. Thank you very much, Divya, for pointing that out. But we're going to have to take action because the politicians are crooked and they clearly behind this Fisher character, who not only, by the way, is the owner of the A's, not only Banana Republic and all of that, and Gap and all of that, but he's also the owner of a charter school chain called KIPP. You'll hear more about that later. Let's unite.
My name is Michael Shane. I've been organizing in OEAs for about a decade now. And before that, I wanted to start by talking to you all about my time working for essentially who would be, the Fishers, who operate the Knowledge is Power program. The ties between the Fishers and their privatization of public education, and then now they're, with John Fisher, the spoiled child of Don and Dolores Fisher. He's pushing to, also privatize public land at the port. So, I, when I moved to the Bay Area, I worked in a couple summer programs. That fall, I got back into the Bay from LA and found a job at KIPP. KIPP is a school in West Oakland, KIPP Bridge, as it was known. So KIPP is, the Knowledge is Power program is one of the largest charter school chains in the country, right? They have mostly middle schools and high schools in large urban centers. So I get this job as a 5th and 6th grade social studies teacher. So the KIPP model essentially is, repeated at all their schools for the most part. Some of them may, operate differently. And mind you, this is information that is, based, now fairly dated. So I don't know if they've changed their model at all. But here's what we did during my time at KIPP. So every week, come Thursday night, I had to write a paycheck for each child in my class. So, and all throughout the week, we, each child had a little, slip where we kept track of deductions, right? So each child would, allegedly was supposed to have, their paycheck should have been, at least $100 every week, 100 KIPP dollars. At the end of the week, I took a look at how many deductions, and, for the good students who, did everything they were supposed to do, they would get their, $100 KIPP paycheck or more, because they could also, do extra stuff to get more money. The kids that, were more, typical of middle schoolers, challenging behavior, They got deductions. Some students got so many deductions that they got zero money at the end of the week. No money, right? So I'm writing these, and like, it's a negative paycheck for these students. Anyway, that was the model. So you see that kind of conditioning, and that's what they want to do for these students. They want to condition them to be good little corporate workers, because, obviously we know the Fishers, Don and Dolores was, the people who started the KIPP Foundation. They started this charter school chain. And then I believe they are also, involved with Rockership. And to be honest, like the early forerunners of the charter school was this group called Edison. And Edison schools came, and actually Edison was big in where I grew up in Peoria, Illinois. Peoria had 2 Edison schools, and the Edison schools basically came in and they took over the public school. So they ran the public school in, how Edison wanted to run it. And they became, this special, kind of public school run by this, group that Don and Dolores Fisher, the KIPP Foundation, started. So anyway, very problematic thing. That's who I worked for a year. It was the worst educational experience of my life. Very military-style, regimented discipline. All the students would have to line up outside the classroom, and then all on the same tile, so they had to form a straight line. If you didn't form a straight line, you couldn't go in the room. All the students had to be what was known as assigning themselves in the line. So you'd have all these kids like trying to fumble around, trying to do something in line. They're standing in a line, and they want them to be reading a book or doing their homework in line while standing. So, this is, literally we would waste 15 to 20 minutes before every class when the students, were out coming back from lunch. They're very high energy in middle school. So a lot of, problematic, ways of educating children are being done as a result of this KIPP, which is now the largest, or one of the largest charter school chains in the country. Anyway, so that was my experience with KIPP. I want to, kind of more get into now, like what can we do about, the charter schools? So, how do we, make sure that we're not continually letting the charter schools, keep infiltrating public schools, keep taking more public space? Because in California, we know that the charter schools have gotten a lot of friendly legislation because our friends in the Democratic Party have made it so they can get, very comfy, very legislation that supports charter schools over public schools. And I'm talking about Prop 39, another one is Prop 51, I believe. Anyway, so this is what we face. So Prop 39 allows charter schools to, claim underutilized public school space. So then, they do a little simple equation. They take how many, square foot a school has. They divide this number of students, and they come up with this nice little thing that says, oh, well, let's see, you guys have so many students and so much, square footage that, so we identify you guys aren't utilizing, enough of your public school space. They, then, the charter school applies for more space because they want to expand. Many charter schools are, have been in the expansion mode, especially in California. So this is how you get, what was known as co-locations. And co-locations, the KIPP school I worked at was co-located with West Oakland Middle School. So we had 2 essentially, schools serving that community of learners in West Oakland, right? All these kids go, they live around each other, they, hang out at the parks together. At school, though, they came, and a lot of it was like, the KIPP teachers, and I literally would hear this, they would, be bad-mouthing the public school students. Oh, look at them. Look how they act. They're not like you. You guys are in a straight line. Look, the public school students are all... So it's very much, a divide and conquer mentality where the charters are coming in and pushing against the idea of, what was going on in the public school, because it was, kind of this, a divide and conquer. They become like this kind of elite model of public school, even though it's not really a public school anyway. So what do we do about that? So, I've been in, like I said, we started out organizing in OEA around a group called Classroom Struggle. Classroom Struggle started out of Occupy Oakland. And Occupy Oakland at the time was fighting the closure of 5 elementary schools. Long story short, all those schools ended up closing. Similar to what's going on at Parker, there was at Lakeview Elementary, one of the parents was not happy, decided that they're going to occupy Lakeview. We occupied that space for about 18 days. Anyway, That education committee, after the occupation, we kind of, figured, okay, well, we still want to organize amongst our coworkers, our fellow teachers. Occupy kind of, came to an end, around, some of the activities that were somewhat, kind of problematic and trying to occupy the Kaiser Center. But anyway, we decided we were going to, form this little committee that organized out of OEA. It was called Classroom Struggle. We got up to the point, we did decent work. We were able to, organize against a complete closure of adult ed in OEA. And we also organized against the kind of privatization of the former admin building along at 2nd Avenue, as well as Dewey. There was a big campaign to save Dewey, which is a continuation school. Anyway, we did some organizing. It was more of a organized within OEA and also outside. So that, kind of was, one of the more, the committees that kind of brought about, at least, we were able to stop, like signing a very concessionary contract in 2018 to the point where we, the incoming leadership group, which is the leadership group that now OEA is led by, Build Our Power. We organized with those folks and Build Our Power, and then we helped them get, into the executive leadership positions and whatnot. And then, so that's how kind of the 2019 OEA strike came about, where, we did not sign what, our leader at the time, our president, Trish Gorham, wanted to sign another concessionary contract. Anyway, it didn't go off. But I want to make sure, the main point I want to say is that happens out of worker self-activity. And like, you hear all these, folks, and rightly they say, we need a workers' party, we need a general strike. Well, we want to make sure, like, how do we get to the point where we start, like, working towards something, like that, where we're working towards a general strike or working towards a workers' party. And to me, that comes with self-activity, right? We talk a lot in our group right now. We have a rank and file caucus that after the strike, because we did not like how our 2019 strike ended, we felt we could have, gotten a lot more, including we felt we could have, prevented them from continuing to close schools with a stronger deal. It didn't happen. We got a little moratorium for 5 months that everyone knew was, not going to prevent them from continuing to close public schools. So, back to the self-activity. So we have a caucus right now. We call ourselves the Rank and File Caucus. And that's, the Rank and File Caucus is how, the one-day strike that we did on April 29th, that is the organizing caucus that, helped get this one-day strike passed, because the union leadership wanted nothing to do with that one-day strike. They, went about trying as best they could to obstruct. When we finally got it passed and it looked like, there was a decent strike vote, they finally were like, okay, this is going to happen. So then they became, okay, now we're going to go from obstruct to co-opt. Anyway, they had their little block party thing at the lake around noon. Now, so this is what, as rank and file workers, you're going to face, especially in California, where the Democratic Party, essentially the Democratic Party is a political machine in this state. And that's another important point I think, we have to understand is that during, at the end of our strike, we were picketing the school board. So they were trying to have a school board meeting, and they wanted to have a school board meeting to accept, so in order to accept this state loan, AB 1840, like they needed to pass, they needed to cut a bunch of SEIU classified positions. So we were down there picketing with our brothers and sisters in SEIU to prevent that meeting from happening. It was the last day they could have that meeting to make those cuts in order for that state loan. No problem. Are we ready? Oh yeah, that's much better.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what you doing.
Yeah, I think I'll try.
Okay, is that better? Can you hear me?
Yeah, turn it on.
Testing, testing, testing. Better? Worse? Okay. I can also just maybe use the voice, as you know, we're not a big crowd. Small but mighty. Anyway, so after to end our strike, they wanted us to bring those picket lines down. They wanted to essentially bring the picket lines down. We won. OEA got a victory. It's a historic victory. But here we were with our brothers and sisters at SEIU picketing to make sure that those positions didn't get cut. So they were, that's where, where we saw the need for this rank and file caucus was because why would a worker, an OEA is a workers' organization, teachers union, why would they be asking us to basically take our pickets down to allow the district to cut a bunch of classified positions from our brothers and sisters in SEIU? One of the biggest things that prevents us from actually getting the schools that our children and our students deserve is that we don't organize enough with the classified workers. We don't have those connections. So many of our classified brothers and sisters in SEIU crossed our picket lines during our strike. The leadership said, "Oh, we'll honor your picket lines," but it was not anything where they, did not cross. They came, and most of them came to work. Now, some of them came in and said, "Oh, we're not going to do anything while we're here. We're just going to go sit in the back of the room." That was mostly the building and grounds. But if that strike would have been much more powerful if all these SEIU classified workers and ASME workers would have said, "No, we're not going to go in there. We're going to honor the pickets, and we're going to picket with these teachers." But that's what we have to do, and that's why it's important that self-activity has to happen. Okay, we're not going to get anywhere unless we have this bottom-up push. Again, like the top-down structure of the unions is that your executive leadership, decides, what they're going to do, how they're going to negotiate, how they're going to bargain. And then usually the workers are just, kind of, not, just kind of take it and like, okay. But in general, if you don't have that fight, if you don't have that, some kind of a caucus to oppose what your leadership is going to do, you're going to just get, whatever contract you get is, going to come from, the district and your union leadership. And for the most part, especially in OEA, our leadership wants to collaborate with the district. Why would you want to collaborate with a district that wants to destroy you? Again, charter schools is about union busting. School closures are about union busting. So that's, not only about union busting, obviously, but that's one of the essential elements of what they're trying to do. So for me, the main points I want to make is that all, the rank and file have to become more, in motion. Self-activity of workers is where we need to get to. We're not there yet, obviously, at least as far as I can tell. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But, obviously we saw what happened where, we had a strong day. One of the strongest days, that I've been at as a worker was April 29th. But we still, we had the ILWU standing in solidarity, teachers standing in solidarity with the ILWU, but it still was, this one-day strike. And then, to be fair, we went set those community pickets up at the port, and it was very, good, but a lot of those workers were not happy that they were not going to work. And that's where we got, we need to do a much better job of reaching out to ILWU workers and, beforehand, and also, continuing to do that because, SLAP is very important. I personally, have been very, very pleased with what SLAP has become, but for us to get, SLAP and actual, schools and labor against privatization and actually succeed, obviously we need to see much more from the rank and file of both OEA, ILWU, SEIU, and all the other organizations, union organizations in the Bay Area. Trying to think any other points. I don't want to stay up here because I know we're trying to, get out of here a little bit, earlier. So I'm going to leave it there. But again, I really want to appreciate, folks like Trent and Steve and, Millie and everybody else that, came together, because obviously we see, like this is not the turnout we wanted, but I think, as long as we, look at this as a start, and then also take, get more to the point where we're trying to, like have the, the steps to start working towards what would be a general strike, right? Because what April 29th could have been, with more unions involved, it could have been more of a mass strike. And I think we need more days where there's more of this mass strike thought. Like thinking about in history of the workers' movement, the most successful workers' movement, obviously the Russian working class. 1905 is, maybe, something that, something similar to 1905, where they were really pushing for, better working conditions. And they had, just what that was a bunch of mass strikes and mass worker movement, mass, fighting against the bosses to get to the point where we might be able to have, something like, a mass strike, or, to work towards also a workers' party. We're not going to get, a workers' party is just not going to, form out of, the energy in this room. We have to get out there and we have to convince workers what, it's going to take to really get to a party that represents us in the state legislatures and in, Washington, D.C. But I really appreciate y'all's time. Thank you so much.
One of the issues that's going on is those unions that have been fighting attacks on public education, particularly adult education, the union leaders have come under attack. And joining us is Kristen Pursley, who's Vice President of the Richmond Adult Student Schools Teachers Union. And she and her president were both fired, and they're both here today, basically for standing up to the West Contra Costa School District. So welcome, Kristen.
Yeah, so, well, what Steve said is pretty much what happened. I guess to give you some background. So our union represents only the adult school teachers for West Contra Costa Unified School District, which is the district that serves Richmond, San Pablo. It serves like 5 cities. It's a big district. We actually tried to join the union that represents the K-12 teachers, and after about a year of negotiations, they kind of decided that they didn't want us. That was a long time ago. I think it would be different now, possibly. We also approached the other big teachers union, and they told us it just wasn't worth organizing us. We were too small, we were going to be too much trouble. So we actually, at that point, there was a lot of distrust among the people we were trying to organize. They were starting to feel like, we don't trust labor organizations, we don't trust our district office, we don't trust anybody. But what we decided was we did trust each other. We'd been working together really hard for more than a year. We'd done a whole card check thing. And so we decided, look, we're just going to become our own union. We're not affiliated with anybody. And that's been really hard in some ways. The reason that we finally decided we really had to organize, I think what happened is we moved kind of from a kind of more paternalistic model where the adult school administration kind of took care of us. I mean, they took care of us in both senses of the word, like take care of you, like, yeah, sometimes really help you, but other ways basically take advantage. But there was kind of a balance there. And what happened actually was FCMAT came in. I guess we're gonna hear about FCMAT later. We had I'm not quite sure what to say exactly happened, but there was well, I'll just say, I think there was someone who was very dishonest that was handling the adult school money, and that a lot of money was disappearing. And FCMAT was called in, and that was used not to fix the problems that there were some problems in terms of how the money was being handled, but to kind of have a war on the teachers. All of a sudden we were being told we didn't have sick leave. We were being told, you're just substitutes. Those of us, we have people who've been working for the adult schools since 1988, and they're being told they're substitute teachers, that they're temporary. And they were even telling people they couldn't check out equipment because they were substitutes. So we had to do something, so that's what we did. I'm sorry, and I feel like, let me know. Nobody gave me a time limit, so I'll try not to take too much time. So fast forward to now. We're still bargaining our first contract. We were recognized by PERB in 2017, and it took us a while to, get what we wanted together with our membership, so that took about a year. So but from about 2018, we have been, we've been bargaining our contract, and it's been slow. We sort of expected it would take time. This year, it's just ground to a halt. And I think that's in the context of kind of a lot of anti-union stuff coming into our district in general. The other unions also, I think, are noticing that our district is just very recalcitrant and not willing to negotiate with us. So it's gotten very contentious, and this is Ken Ryan, and he's the president of our union, I'm the vice president. And around the last week of school, we both got letters saying that we were temporary employees, and it was very nice to have known us, but we were released from our employment. And this was like completely unexpected. And apparently none of the school board knew about it. Our vice principal didn't know about it. Our principal had left. We still don't know exactly what happened. And then, fortunately, we went to the other unions. They were very supportive of us. We went to the community, and people spoke up, and we got our jobs back. So thank you. So it does show that, if people support each other, you can have victories. I would say in terms of, I kind of think of what we're doing as being sort of like what's happening with the Amazon workers and people like that. Like we're the people nobody thought could be organized. We're the people that supposedly our jobs are very marginal. We're not really the point of the school district. The point of the school district is to educate the kids, and we have these people kind of hanging on who are adult school teachers. We don't see it that way. We know we do very important work in the community that we're in. And I think that this kind of organizing of people who are not normally thought of as being organizable is part of what needs to be done.
My name's Ken Ryan. I'm the president of the Adult School Teachers United in Richmond. In 2008, adult education throughout the state got its budget cut in half, and it hasn't been restored. And we were reduced to basically, we're focused on job training, which is good, and getting people to college, which is also good. But the older adult program is not funded, parent education is not funded. And one of the reasons I'm thinking after looking at the privatizing sign that our mission has been reduced is that you can, the job training can be put on, software companies can do the training. And there's money to be made there by privatizers. So that's one of the things that's pushing us. So one of the reasons we were fired is we opposed the older adult program being eliminated. And we want to be back in the neighborhood schools with the adult ESL classes for the parents And that's not the plan of the district. So I think those were the two things that helped to get us laid off. And it was the community leaders that we had worked with for we've both been working for 30 years. It was the community leaders that we got to know when they weren't community leaders that helped get our jobs back, as well as the other unions. So, thank you.
This is not an isolated incident, as he said, because the destruction of adult education, the older adult program at San Francisco City College, is a state policy. The Democrats are pushing that. The Democrats are in charge of California, and they had a $97 billion surplus. Did they fully fund adult education? No. And the thing about it is, where the hell is the CTA? Where's the CFT? Where are the education unions? Complete silence. In other words, it's okay to shut down adult education. It's okay to shut down ESL, which is also being closed down. I mean, it's despicable that these programs' basic needs for working class kids and adults are being destroyed under the auspices of the Democratic Party when they have a $100 billion surplus. That's what we're talking about. And it's not a new thing, because Madeline Mueller, who's our next speaker, has been fighting Illumina and these corporations, these foundations, union-busting foundations, privatizing foundations that really run California through the Democratic Party. So Madeline, do you want to say a few words?
Coming from the arts, I chair the music department and probably fairly soon will be chairing the theater arts department. You know, I don't like bad actors, but they are bad actors. And I just wanted to label a few so you could keep them in mind. I started looking into this over 10 years ago at City College because I spent many years doing informal lobbying up at Sacramento on behalf of the Music Association statewide and the college. And I'd go up every 6 weeks and hang around in the halls of Sacramento, and I knew the scene. I did that for about 20 years. So I started seeing data in the 2010s, data about how terrible the community colleges were, and how terrible our students were, and terrible, terrible, terrible data. And I'm also interested in keeping track of data. I think musicians rather like such things. Music and math, they say, goes together. So I started looking. Somebody said, oh, well, check it out on Google. This is over 10 years ago. I didn't know what they were talking about. So I did, and found what I call connecting the dots. I found some of these bad actors. I wrote a paper. I reread it the other day, and I thought, oh, my God, it's still in play, and it's gotten worse. It's au courant. And what I found in those many years ago, already Lumina, which was a foundation of money from Sally Mae, which was still, now it's Naviat, I think it's called. It's a student loan profit-making stuff, one of the biggest for post-secondary ed students. So they set up a private, so-called private, foundation of their ill-begotten gains called Lumina. And Lumina, it's the golden rule. Whoever has the gold rules, they just go through the post-secondary system, tossing money and making all kinds of rules and regulations, having what they call now the student funding formula, which Jerry Brown, and by the way, listening to Stephen before, Anne, whatever her last name is now, his wife, you know, she was the major lawyer for KIP, for the Fishers. I mean, connect those dots, pretty close. So, and the Browns had a couple of charter schools over in Oakland, a military one and an arts one. So we're all in the same basket of diversion there. At any rate, I found that this Lumina, which is an operation out of Indiana, headed by a man from Maine called Jamie Mercedes, completely control Washington, D.C. Cabinet of Ed. It doesn't matter if it's a Democratic president and a regime or a Republican. They control. And they do it all with this ton of money, billions of dollars in this foundation on the backs of student loans, it turns out. And of course, all of the language for students to get through college, all of this, what's called completion documents, the document, and transfer in and out, 2 years, fast, full-time, blah, blah, blah. It all adds up to that students are forced, at a very early age. They're not even allowed summer off between high school and college. You're supposed to start the program right out of high school, go to summer session at your local community college, decide your major. You're 18 years old. The brain is not ready for this, and that's not what education should be. But the students are forced into these, what they call guided pathways, which is mandatory placements. And then they're guided absolutely towards student loans. Now, when I started doing this investigation of who were the bad actors, yes, I found Lumina, this was over 10 years ago, and also ALEC, which is the Koch brother fundings, American Legislative Exchange Council. ALEC's thing is to take over state by state legislation that controls all of our public school systems. They take it over in order to destroy it. And I have the paper trail. I have a house full of paper trails because computers, sometimes things get erased and funny things, but paper, it's still there. And so I have the paper trail and all this, the legislative stuff that Californian legislators bought into it. It doesn't matter what party. Again, they are paid, they are wined and dined, very literally. They're told, hey, don't you bother yourselves about writing legislation. Let us do that. This is the ALEC Koch brother stream of funding, the gold. And of course, the legislature, they say, you know, you're busy making money to be reelected. Let us take care of the legislation. And I have those, and they're very destructive. So you have that double thing of the Lumina coming in with the students, really, really forcing them into these horrible patterns, and it's been discussed already, you know, jobs for industry. And then if you glut the market, you don't have to, industry doesn't pay, if there's even jobs in the first place. What I found out is that the data is full of lies. And they use numbers because people get kind of intimidated by numbers, and they say, oh, well, look, here's a graph. It must be true. You have it all in a pie form. Yeah, no, they use that. Somebody once said there's what is it? Lies, damn lies, and statistics in a lowering order. That's what can be done with data, and it has to be always looked at and always vetted by people, by the workers. None of this educational reform, and then Bill Gates comes in with all of his, and he just has this personal thing where he's going to run education. So he puts his money behind the Lumina money, behind the Koch brother monies, and they are all over the place. K-12, post-secondary, they want to get rid of public post-secondary because that's not where the student loans really kick in. The student loans, you've seen it all in the news lately, the Corinthians and all of this. That's the for-profit post-secondaries are where they capture the student loans. It's now almost $2 trillion in student loan debt, and it's the only debt that you cannot ever get out of. There's no way to, except maybe if some government official goes, oh, we'll have mercy on you because it's so egregious. But under the normal student debt situation, lifelong, you can't get out of it. You have to go to work at substandard wages. I used to call it indentureship. Now I call it slavery. That's the kind of debt. Indentureship people, at least historically, 18th century or whatever, 17th, they could work themselves out of it. Slavery, you can't. We are, as a nation, they don't go working in the fields, they go working for industry, but under the same horrible lifelong debt. And if, God forbid, your parents happen to sign off on your loan, they will attach your parents' Social Security. They'll attach your Social Security. I've had students tell me all these stories of their debt. The first thing I tell my students is don't ever take out a student loan. They have a system they call slabbing. They don't tell the students, but a little loan will just go whoosh, and the students all owe $30, $40, $50, $100,000 that they can never, ever get out of. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And guess who proportionately, and they go after, they have think tanks, they being Lumina, Bill Gates, ALEC, they have think tanks to make the language so attractive to 18-year-olds, manipulate like crazy. Do this and you will get out, you won't be poor anymore. They go after students of color, they go after the poor, they go after veterans' benefits, because that's a good place to get money. And right now, proportionately, I have an article I just read, but I've always said this, proportionately, the students most apt to be, given their demographic, in debt forever, slavery, are African American women. What a coinky-dink, as somebody I knew would say. No, it's the perpetration, and now that we know we're in the whole fascist American scene, it's come out from under a rock. It's always been there, but now it's out from under a rock. So we do need to be together, the feeders, the K-12s, the children. We have to study brain research on what's appropriate. The teachers need to know. And I think I will conclude with one announcement and I just heard her speech, of somebody who has looked into this now 10 years later after me kind of looking into it. But I'm going to get Steve maybe, because I just got this, to recommend a book by a woman named Robin Isserlis called The Costs of Completion, Student Success in Community College. And what she had to say, I listened to her yesterday, I just got this announcement on an hour-long podcast, was that it's not success. It's what I told you. It's entrapment. It's wrong. The whole completion educational thing has been done totally without faculty input. We really need to address this, because they are after public colleges so that we don't exist anymore. That you heard earlier this morning, if you were here. Yeah, City College used to have 100,000 students. We were the flagship. And students, actually with Free City, if you live in the city, you don't have to pay anything to go to school. That's anathema to Washington, D.C., to Sacramento, to all these people. You don't want students paying nothing. You want a system where they pay through the teeth and get into lifelong debt. That's what you want. That's the American way. So I think we need to be very, very conscious of this. And I'm just giving you, as I said, a short description of some of the bad actors, so that as you see these things, maybe some articles to Steve, and I'm sorry, Steve, I'm going to use you as our clearinghouse, so that we can keep ourselves informed about what is happening. And the last thing, I think I said last thing, but the last thing is that Sacramento Community College system, the state chancellor, is very keen on something they've wanted since the 70s. When I used to go up and talk to all these people and lobby, I know they've always wanted to have the California Community College system, which is huge, well, it used to be, run as a single system out of Sacramento so that they can have the power. Orwell said, it starts as greed and then it goes into power, and they just have to have the power. So they want a junior college system that was in existence 50 years ago, and I started teaching 50 years ago, and I know it didn't work that well. They want that system to come back and run totally out of the state. So you can't have any outliers. You can't have, of the 114, 15 community colleges, they all have to be, and I've been told, under the table. Jerry Brown made the suggestion before he left. A community college, all of them, none of them should have more than 10,000 students for ease of management. And that's why they're after the biggest school in the system, really. That's why they're after City College, so that they can take us over as a junior college and have ease of management and run us from a Regency's system out of Sacramento. They've been wanting that since the 70s. And that's partly also what's in play here. I'll stop.
Thank you very much, Madeline. And it's really, again, the Democrats, Bonta, Skinner, Chu in San Francisco, the Democrats are the ones pushing this. The Democrats are pushing the privatization of community colleges and the destruction. And our unions are completely silent about it. It's as if it's okay. And I think that's really one of the issues that we're facing. Another attack which has to be addressed is this FCMAT, which is being used to attack Oakland Unified School District. It's being used to attack San Francisco Unified School District, West Contra Costa School District, working class schools all over the state. And joining us to talk about FCMAT is Kelley Epstein, who's an education professor, holding names and college, and is KPFA host on education. So, Kitty.
I'm so happy to be with you all. I am actually out of the country myself, learning about some other educational systems and how they operate. But I'm really happy to be with you on this occasion. I think the things that are being discussed are super important. So, FCMAT is an organization that was set up specifically to control urban school districts and keep them from doing what they wanted to do to help their own students. And it was set up primarily by Democrats, and it was set up as a private entity, non-governmental, but with authority over school districts. And so it is an odd sort of organization that is able to absolutely dictate policies to school districts, but it actually isn't elected by anybody, and there's no democratic control of it. It's called the Fiscal Crisis Management and Assistance Team. And if you look up it's a very, very important organization. And one of the great concerns that I have is that there is so little consciousness about who they are and what they do. If you look up their website and look under their staff, you will see astonishingly that they are unembarrassed by the fact that they have a totally unrepresentative staff. It's 100% white, as far as you can tell. I don't know, you can't tell everything but pictures, but you can tell a lot. And they are based in Bakersfield. And so they wield all this power from Bakersfield. So they started out with Oakland when Don Parada wanted to make Oakland become taken over by the state of California. And there was the kinds of arguments that are made about, Oakland's incompetent, people in Oakland don't know what they're doing. Sometimes, of course, organizations and government entities don't know what they're doing. But at the time when Don Parada was trying to take over the school district, that wasn't the case. And actually, this is the only school district in the country that I'm aware of that fought hard enough to keep out state takeover for 15 years. And this was when there was first elected an African-American majority school board. And they were actually trying to do things that would change the way the district operated so that it was better for African-American students. And I'm not saying that everything they did was right, but they did a lot of things that had not been done before. For example, they rejected a racist textbook that that the state of California wanted everybody to buy. They refused to buy it. They changed the tracking policy to the extent that they could to make there not be tracking of different kids between different classes. They did some things that were actually anti-racist reforms of Oakland, which had been a very, very racist school district. And Sylvester Hodges, who was the president of the board for a long time, gets the credit for keeping the budget balanced so that the district was not able to be taken over. He retired from the board, and Don Parada, who at the time was the president of the state Senate, had an enormous amount of power, and he was a very corrupt politician, and he, sold his soul and his votes for money, basically, to various people. And he really wanted to get the school district taken over. And so he went through all kinds of maneuverings to get the district to have what appeared to be a large debt. Now, the superintendent at the time, someone he supported, was, kind of a reasonably good educator, but he wasn't very good at keeping the budget balanced. And by this time, Sylvester Hodges had retired and wasn't keeping track of it. And so there was a small, amount of money that was owed. However, that money could have been covered by the bonds that the district itself had. And the state refused to allow Oakland to pay for its own debt with its own bonds as collateral, which other districts had been allowed to do. And this was because Parada was so absolutely determined to take over the district. So there was a huge fight over everything in Sacramento. The president of the teachers union at the time supported the takeover of the district, which was, reprehensible. I think she thought that she was going to get some good deal out of Parada, which never happened. So she got up and said it was great for the district to be taken over. And so he got the state legislature to agree that the district would be taken over by the state, and imposed onto the district would be a $100 million loan. Now, Oakland did not need $100 million, never asked for $100 million. This was way beyond any kind of debt anyone ever asserted that the district needed. And so question is, why would you give away more money than you have to? Well, what Parada was doing was essentially giving the money to himself and his friends, because the people who were going to be in charge of the district were people that he controlled. And so it would be great if they had $100 million to play with. So nobody said it was needed, but they voted to put it in anyway because he had so much power as president of the Senate. The organization that was put in charge of watching over the district was FCMAT. And FCMAT was the agency which got to decide whether the district was doing the right things with its budget. So for the past more than 20 years, the actual authority over the Oakland School District has been by this all-white, Bakersfield-bound, non-elected bunch of bureaucrats operating at the behest of people like Don Parada. And they have had the actual authority over what the district did. A state administrator was appointed, Randy Ward, and he became the absolute authority in the district. The school board was disbanded. It was not, its authority was taken away from it. And Randy Ward began making all the decisions. And the decisions he made were to close many schools, to make the district into essentially the business model. So all the business vocabulary was adopted by the district. So it didn't sound like a government entity, it sounded like a business. And many other things, many very bad things that he did to the district. There were several other state administrators after him, but all of them operated in tandem with FCMAT. FCMAT operates usually behind the scenes. They usually give their directions and their orders without being, in person. But more recently, in the last few years, we've started talking more about them, talking about doing investigations of them, and demanding that FCMAT stop being in charge of the district, and demanding that the state allow the district to pay off the loan so that we could actually have local control again. The state does not want this, and they have put everything in the way of the district being able to control itself. So while people's opposition to the current school board is righteous, the real culprit in this is the state legislature and people like Parada who have wanted to keep the district under control. Okay, why would they want to do this? Well, first of all, as I said, Parada wanted to have control over all this money because then he could, decide who would get these various contracts and so on. And so that was very important to him. There's another reason, and that is that, and I'm not the first person to go around talking about conspiracies. That's not my thing. I'm not always thinking there's some conspiracy, but in this case, there actually is. There has been a determination that Oakland is going to become a city more like San Francisco, which serves richer, whiter people. And one part of doing that is to have control of the district. And there now are studies which indicate the impact that closing schools has on the nature of the communities where those schools are being closed. A significant study came out from Stanford a couple of months ago that shows that the one thing that absolutely increases gentrification and the displacement of the Black community is closing a Black school. This is the one thing that has the effect on moving people from the Black community out of a district, out of a community. And this is a lot of the purpose of what's happening as far as the real estate industry and developers and rich people like John Fisher, who's trying to take over our port. They want to move out the people who don't have a lot of money, and they want to move in more people into their high-end luxury housing. And those people, they want them to be able to have schools that they like and want to go to. And they don't want to have a community which is as multiracial and importantly diverse as Oakland is. So this has been a very, very thought out campaign, and FCMAT has been at the center of it. And it's disturbing and distressing that few people actually know about FCMAT's role. And we really do need to be able to hold the Democratic leadership responsible for the fact that they have imposed FCMAT on us and refuse resolutely, one after another. Rob Bonta, Mia Bonta, Nancy Skinner have all been involved in, although they know, Nancy Skinner said at one point that she understood that the district had been treated unfairly and FCMAT should not be there. But as soon as we tried to get her to actually do what she promised to do, she wouldn't do it. So the behind-the-scenes desire to keep them in power and authority in the district is very high up the chain of command as far as California politics is concerned. Thank you.